What's up, YouTube? It's your boy Johnny. Back in here with one more reaction video, ladies and gentlemen. And today I got a video from one of my favorite YouTube channels, Academy of Ideas. And this video is titled Why Suffering Can Promote Strength and Health. And you know me, I think hardships makes men out of us all, and women. Excuse me for wearing a hoodie. It's a little cold in Kansas City right now, a little rainy day. Well, little baby say it's the middle of the summer, I got a hoodie on. If you like what you hear in this video, please share it far and wide. As I like to say, we just spirits encased in human flesh, trying to figure out this thing called life, not nearly as divided as it may seem.
In McGilchrist's magnum opus, The Matter with Things, he elucidates on the value of suffering by drawing an analogy between humans and the trees. In the late 1980s, scientists involved with the Biosphere 2 project created an enclosed ecological system to explore the potential viability of supporting life on another planet. And as McGilchrist writes, scientists involved in the Biosphere 2 project were puzzled by the fact that trees within the project repeatedly failed to achieve maturity before they fell over. Later, they realized that trees needed wind in order to grow strong. Exposure to winds causes the growth of stress wood, which is the core of the tree's strength and integrity. Winds also cause the root system to strengthen. As with a tree, if a man or woman is placed in a sheltered environment and protected from the stressors of life, he or she will grow up vulnerable and frail. Hardship, adversity, and the suffering that accompanies such experiences are necessary for a healthy development.
And that's dope to hear, because in my childhood, man, I remember it was probably 500-600 times I was sitting down saying, man, why am I going through this? Why is this happening? You know, when you live in a homeless shelter, like when we first went to the homeless shelter, there wasn't enough rooms for us to have our own room. So we used to just sleep in the gym on a cot. And then when a room became available, we had to share a room with another lady who had a son there. And then eventually, me, my mom, and my little brother, we had our own room in the homeless shelter. And they don't let you have food in your room, so we used to sneak. Right hand to God, brown sugar cinnamon Pop-Tarts. We used to sneak them in our rooms, and they used to come through and search your room and all that to make sure you ain't got no food in there. We would either put them in our pillowcase or put them in mama's purse. And then you fast forward, we get our Section 8. And I remember the Section 8 inspections once a year, and we used to have to hide all my daddy's stuff to pretend he didn't live with us. And I was like, why is this happening? And you go through the situation of having not having lights and not having gas. Like I graduated high school, no lights, no water, no gas in the house. My first car that I had when I was 16, my daddy totaled out. The neighborhood drug dealer got shot on my porch. I mean, all these things was happening. And I remember just sitting saying, man, why is this happening? Why is my life so hard? And now I'm a grown man and I see people triggered over words and pronouns. And I'm like, okay, I needed those hardships that I went through because I'm not fazed by the stuff that's going on in life right now. As long as I got a roof over my head and I can put food in my kid's belly, that's what really matters. But when you grew up protected and coddled and didn't really get to face hardship and adversity, then these small things really throw you off and they knock you off. Your whole day get off because somebody mispronounced your pronouns or somebody cut you off in traffic. So I didn't understand why I went through such a hard childhood I did, but I look back, man, I'm extremely grateful for it. So anybody who watching this video, if you got it out the mud, if you had to thug it out, I am you and you are me to the very end. And if you're one of them people who grew up in a coddled in childhood, start taking the martial arts or something. Put yourself in, do cryotherapy. Get in that chamber of negative 220 and see how much you can stress. It'll help you out, man. Yoga, meditate, do something and put yourself in a hard situation so you won't be so uptight with life.
Nietzsche recognized this fact about trees and people long before the Biosphere 2 project, and as he wrote, examine the lives of the best and most fruitful people, and ask yourself whether a tree that is supposed to grow to a proud height can dispense with bad weather and storms, whether misfortune and eternal resistance do not belong among the favorable conditions without which any great growth, even of virtue, is scarcely possible.
And to piggyback off what Nietzsche said right there, if you've read Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill, he states that if you look at any successful man's life, from the amount of success he's had, he's also had that same amount of failure. And I wholeheartedly believe that's true. I don't know anybody who's had just a fantastic life forever. But as Les Brown said, if you fall down, at least fall on your back, because if you can look up, you can get up. Dust yourself and try again. Shout out to Aaliyah.
But the value of suffering goes beyond the fact that it is an inescapable byproduct of the hardships that lead to personal growth. Rather, there are values to suffering that are intrinsic to the experience. Firstly, suffering is a great teacher, or as Nietzsche put it, great suffering is the ultimate liberator of the mind.
Man.
Suffering can make evident errors in our ways and point to the necessity for change. Suffering is also essential for empathy. Unless we suffer, how can we know what others are going through in times of hardship? It is also well established that certain forms of suffering, most notably depression, increase our capacity to realistically evaluate life, or as McGilchrist explains. Depression has repeatedly been shown to be associated with greater realism, provided the depression is not too severe. The evidence is that this is not because insight makes you depressed, but because, up to a point, being depressed gives you insight. In understanding one's role in bringing about a certain outcome, depressives are more in touch with reality even than normal subjects. Suffering, however, does more than teach. It also increases our capacity to enjoy life. For suffering exists at one end of a dipole, or set of opposites, and on the other end lie happiness and joy. As with all pairs of opposites, for
Good and
one
bad,
to
yin and
exist,
yang.
so must the other. For an individual to know joy, he or she must also know the pain of suffering.
Be grateful for the rainy days so you can appreciate sunshine. Got it out.
And the greater our capacity for one of these types of experiences, the greater our capacity for the other. Or as Nietzsche put it, how little you know of human happiness, you comfortable and benevolent people. For happiness and unhappiness are sisters and evil twins, that either grow up together or, as in your case, remain small together. And as McGilchrist explains, opposites are not to be resolved by eliminating the one we happen to dislike, any more than lopping off the south end of a bar magnet gets rid of the South Pole. It just shortens the magnet.
Mm-hmm.
But if many of the hardships and adversities that cause suffering promote self-development, if suffering leads to greater realism and self-knowledge, and if it is needed to fully experience joy and happiness, then why are so many people made worse off by their suffering? Why, in other words, does suffering drive so many of us into states of chronic depression, resentment, pessimism, nihilism, and despair? Simply put, we have become too spoiled by the fruits of modern civilization, and as a result,
Agree.
most people are not practiced in the art of suffering.
I don't think most people understand what a hard life is like, especially if you grew up in America. No matter what color you are, you really never experienced poverty. Like in a third world country, poverty. There's a reason so many people are trying to come to America every day to create a better life. And because we've never really had hardships, like in my life when 9/11 happened, I was in middle school when 9/11 happened. But there hasn't been a really serious tragedy on American soil really in my life. And if you're younger than me, you really ain't experienced nothing outside of the political mud getting slung on TV. But life is dangerous. And if you've never seen death in your face, like watch people die or they've been exposed to losing somebody close to you, then you'll have a flawed sense of this isn't fair here or this isn't right. And we got to be more grateful for where we are. I say a lot of times, if you step in dog poop, be grateful for that you got shoes.
With easy access to the necessities of survival, surrounded by sources of pleasure and comfort, and with sickness and death hidden away in hospitals and morgues, we are shielded from the physical and psychic suffering that was the norm of ages past. Our minds and bodies have grown soft and unprepared to deal with the sufferings of life. The refinement and alleviation of existence make even the inevitable mosquito bites of the soul and body seem much too bloody and malignant, observed Nietzsche. The comforts of modern civilization have magnified our sensitivity to pain and suffering to the point where many consider the mere thought of pain a reproach against the whole of existence.
Man.
Or as Nietzsche continued, pain did not hurt as much then as it does now. Pain is now hated much more than was the case for earlier humans. One speaks much worse of it.
There used to be sticks and stones may break my bones, but words could never hurt me. And now we've evolved to words are literally violence.
As a result of our pathological oversensitivity, when suffering does arise, many of us flee from it. We turn to drugs, alcohol, or the alluring glow of screens to distract ourselves. Should these techniques fail, psychotropic drugs can always numb us to our pains. But in always
Especially when they recommended everybody to go to therapy now and just take these pills. My mom overdosed on opioids. So the doctors prescribed her something because she was depressed and she's no longer with us. You know, when I was a kid, I didn't do drugs. I didn't smoke. I didn't drink. But my drug of choice was sleeping with women. And I don't think sex is any different than taking drugs, because anything in abundance becomes a hindrance to your life. And I didn't value myself. And anytime I went through a hard situation, I needed to go find a girl to sleep with. Anytime that I was stressed or I didn't have the money to make ends meet, I went to find a young woman to sleep with. And what I learned through that process of life, outside of having a bunch of kids and paying for abortions and all that stuff, is that the more you chase pleasure, the more you'll run into pain. But if you sit there and deal with the pain, on the other side of that is pleasure.
trying to escape, deny, or mask our suffering, we fail to harvest its value. For suffering's value comes only to those who are willing to endure it and prepared to face it head on.
Man.
And as Nietzsche wrote, if you are unwilling to endure your own suffering even for an hour, and continually forestall all possible misfortune, if you regard suffering and pain generally as evil, as detestable, as deserving of annihilation, and as blots on existence, well, you have then in your heart the religion of smug ease.
And we're going to leave the video right there. You got to be able to endure suffering. Whatever you've gone through, whatever you've been through, wherever you come from, you got to be able to deal with it. Because there was a point in life when I blamed everybody for everything else that I was going through except myself. It was his fault. It was her fault. It was the government's fault. It was because of this. It was because of that. Until I sat and got in the mirror and said, no, it's because of you, Johnny. If you want a better life, create it. But you can't keep running from this situation and that situation and then expecting things to get better. I'm sure we all know people who got a different set of friends every year. Every time you see them, they hanging out with a different person. But they never the problem. Or we all know somebody who always got a different job, or always got a different car, or always got an excuse of why something ain't going right in their life. But it's never their fault. Get away from those people. Disconnect yourself. But you got to endure suffering. You know, I can't remember the full quote, but I know they say hard times make strong men. And right now we need a lot of men to step up. I say the most important job right now is raising your children. That's every man. If you have children in this world right now, they need a strong male role model to look up to. Everything you see I am is because of my children. This internet thing, this is a digital diary. That the world can slander your name and throw mud on you and paint you in any different direction they want. But they can't edit the truth in these videos that I'm giving to the world. So anybody who's dealing with a hard situation right now, understand that there's better days ahead. Divorce yourself from your past. Understand that you can create your reality. We become what we think about. If you haven't read Earl Nightingale, The Strangest Secret in the World, I definitely recommend you check that book out. Write the vision down and make it plain. Decide what you want to be in life. And as Dolph said, go get the money, man. Like the video, share the video, subscribe to the channel. Be the change you wish to see in this world. Until next time, we out.